Welcome to another edition of Reptile Fight Club. Justin G. Leonard, with me is Chuck Poland. What is up?
Nothing. Did you see Mike Tyson beat that dude's ass on an airplane?
I saw that.
That dude had it coming. That
So
dude
he
had it coming.
was messing with him, right?
What are you thinking? Like
I know.
even dumb drunk me would not
Yeah.
fucking fuck with Mike Tyson.
I
Like,
know. Like, even as an old man, he could still just.
dude.
Oh, God.
Dude, and you
Yeah.
know he didn't hit him as hard as he could. Like, I mean, he was punching on him, but dude,
I watched his, like, when he was training to fight. Who did he fight just recently? It was like an exhibition thing for charity or something.
It was
But yeah.
was
Anyway,
it Roy Jones Jr.?
yeah. But, like, man, he was working.
Bro,
He was serious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that
Yeah.
guy's on another level, man.
Yeah. He's a monster.
Like if
he's,
you've ever listened to like him talk about like his life and stuff like that, like he has a switch that, like, you know, when he loses his, like, he goes, you know, he's not all, like, when he flips out, he's not all there. He's a scary dude, man.
This is the guy who beat his girlfriend and stuff. You know, he's not gonna think twice about beating some loudmouth behind him. You know,
Oh, yeah.
messed up. Yeah, but the guy's probably thinking, "Oh, I can sue him now," but I don't think he's worth what he used to be. You know what I mean?
Well, I don't. I no. I think he.
Is
I
he
mean,
back?
yeah. He has like a cannabis ranch where he does like a whole.
Right.
I mean, I think
His
it's
own strains and
yeah,
stuff.
it's a multi-million-dollar operation, I think.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think Mike's doing okay.
Yeah, Mike's doing all right.
I just think it's really interesting. Well, I saw that they basically, like, when the police came to take statements, all of a sudden the guy who was bugging him, you know, didn't want to give a statement and didn't want to,
Yeah,
like,
'cause
you
he
know what
knew
I mean? Yeah. Well, I mean, it's that too, and it's like, are you really going to be the guy that presses charges on Mike Tyson after, you know, after you basically bothered him to the point where he beat you up on an airplane?
Yeah,
Like,
you can't wake the bear and then cry about it
yeah,
when he mauls you.
exactly.
Pretty messed up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I'm pulling a Dr. Evil today. Got
now, you
my hairless
know.
cat.
Yeah.
He's nuts. But he'll just come and sit on my lap in here. It's kind of nice.
That's crazy.
Usually is not like to sit still very long, but
So I was reading an article about a loosely correlated, so men who had cats as boys suffer psychosis at a greater rate in adulthood than, but they said it was the it was inconsistent. Yeah, it's inconsistent. It's in the data was kind of inconsistent a little bit, but in men who had cats as boys, when they grow up, they have a higher propensity for psychosis, which is
I heard it was like risky behaviors. Like there's a parasite that cats carry. I can't remember the name of it.
Toxoplasmosis.
Yeah, and then the mice get it, and the mice will like go towards the cat, you know.
And that was what they also said was it was high, it was more correlated to cats that were outdoor cats that would hunt.
Yeah. All our cats are indoors, they're pretty funny. This Ramsey's is a good cat. I'm gonna ditch him out of the room because he wants to explore and probably he'll start peeing on stuff or something. He thinks he's a dog more than a cat. But 1 second.
Yeah. So cats, who needs them? waste of fur, if you ask me.
Our hairless cat he's really fun. He's a
Yeah,
cool
no,
cat, but
those are probably the only cats I can dig on. Like
yeah,
they're,
yeah.
but that's only because they think they're dogs. You know
Yeah,
what I
yeah,
mean? Like
maybe so. I don't
I
know.
don't.
I mean, he's a pretty cat, but like he's all cat, but yeah, he has some dog tendencies. But it's kind of funny. He'll wake me up every morning. He'll
Yeah,
come up and like go up the side of the bed and just kind of tap my
slap you
face.
in the face.
Yeah,
Get up,
and whine like
Jolinder.
it's time to feed me. You know, typical
Get
cat.
your
You know,
ass out of bed, Jolinder.
exactly.
Let's
Yeah.
go.
So yeah, now he's gonna sit and whine, want to come back in,
Yeah.
but hopefully he'll lose interest quickly.
All right. So
Well, you just got back from a dance recital.
I did
Nice.
wonderfully. You should have
Oh,
seen me in
good,
my
good.
tutu and
You
everything.
are pretty graceful, so
I I'm
yeah.
spry.
Oh
I'm
yeah, oh yeah.
spry. No, actually, yeah, my daughter is in ballet. She's in
How
junior
fun.
company, so
Mhm.
she's been so junior company does performances and they do them around. So like we went to Knott's Berry Farms and she performed and she did halftime at an SDSU basketball game,
Oh, cool.
and this one was at a high school, really nice auditorium.
Mhm.
So she has a couple of dances. She has a solo and a couple dances. So
Yeah.
family went to watch her perform. So she's
Cool.
actually she's very good dancer.
Mhm.
Very proud father. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's
That's
nice.
fun to watch your kids, excel and do
Yeah,
cool stuff
I
like
feel like such an asshole though because I like watch the other kids dance and I'm like, my daughter's better
that.
than
Yeah.
her. I'm fucking better than her, you know? Like,
Yeah.
like
That.
that one's kind of good. I don't know if I like her, but I think Sophia is still better than her.
Yeah.
So, you know.
Right. That's awesome.
I know you're a competitive dude, so you get what I'm saying. You get what I'm
Me? I'm
saying.
not competitive at all.
What? Your ass.
You are talking about me. I just, yeah, no.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a pretty big competitive streak. I try not to be
No
too
way.
jerky about it, but yeah, I
No,
like
you're
to
not. You're not.
I
You're
like to
just like,
excel, but
yeah,
you know.
you're pretty cool about it, and you just have to get your one like, haha, you lose in there, and you're done, right?
Go. I just let my actions speak, they'll speak for me. I don't need to say anything.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. When I work out, like if like I'm swimming, and if somebody next to me is going fast, like I try to keep up with
Splash
them or
them. You
pass
just
them or
splash
something.
them.
Yeah, drown them. Let's push their head under. No.
Undo their lane chain and like
Yeah,
throw it into into their way. They get all tangled
so I
up.
can pass them up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, all right. I've
How'd you
been working on some tanks, building some like putting in some fake rock and stuff. I'm trying to make them nice looking for my skinks.
Frank the Tank?
Yeah, the Egernias.
Oh,
Yeah,
nice, nice.
yeah. So I was working
Are
on
you
the
breeding those
Hosmerai.
Agurnias yet?
Well, yeah. I mean, they'll.
I mean, they're
Yeah,
like, yeah,
they
they're
live
adults,
together.
right?
So
They're yeah.
yeah, I mean the depressor may be a little young. The
The
It looks like
Hosmeraya.
the Hosmerai are older. The um Striolata look like they might be going soon. One of the ones that looks female is much bigger than the others, and she's out basking a lot more than she ever has. So I'm hoping she's cooking some babies in there. Looks like a couple of my blue tongues are also gravid. They're gonna have some
Nice,
babies soon too. So one looks
nice.
huge. I'm like, oh man. And then I'm like, I was so worried I wasn't gonna get inlands again. I paired like three of the females, and they all look gravid. Like I'm gonna have three clutches of inlands or something, but I don't know. We'll see. You never
I
count your
know
eggs till they hit the ground, but
that's true.
yeah.
Well,
And even
if
then, you
if
got to hatch them
if
out.
if
So
you end up with a gaggle of inlands, I might talk to you about it.
yeah,
I've been
you can
so
keep those outside. That would be
yeah,
awesome.
I know. That's what I've been like.
Build a cage
No,
next to
no,
the coastals.
no, no, no.
Yeah.
You know, so like,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
And like
Yeah.
I paired up a black-eyed children's male with a black-eyed
Yeah.
children's female. So this will be the first time I
Nice.
produced black-eyed to
See,
black-eyed. And the male was tiny, so I thought, it's not gonna happen. Well, she looks gravid, and then
yeah.
I've got too many things that look gravid
Does
right now.
black-eyed
So
to black-eyed make other wonky stuff,
I don't know.
or
I've never done it. I'm assuming it's just a recessive trait, so they'll all be black-eyed, but I don't know. Who knows what else is going on there? Because I don't know if this is much of a secret project, but I bred a black-eyed Stimson's python that's really dark. Like he started going
Mhm.
darker and darker. What's anyway, so I bred him back. I bred him to one of the female Stimsons, and then held back two of the females from him, and then bred him back to them. And last year, one of the females laid, and I got 2 out of 5 that had like a pied tail. So
Mm.
some pied-tailed Stimsons.
Oh, I
They were kind of
remember.
patternless with a little
Yeah,
white
yeah,
spot.
yeah.
Yeah. So I repeated those pairings, and I one of the clutches crashed, and I just got good eggs from that female. They look good anyway. We'll see if they hatch out, but
Yeah, yeah.
so we'll see what happens with that. And neither of the females have black eyes. Like the
Mm.
male, the black male has black eyes versus the yellow eyes that you usually see with, or orangey yellow eyes with the Stimsons. So yeah, we'll see what happens, but it's kind of
Yeah.
fun, kind of
Yeah.
interesting, see
Yeah.
what we get. But yeah,
Cool.
one of the pied tails I hatched out is doing really well. The other one's kind of struggling. It's kind of a runty one, and I keep trying to feed it up, and I think I keep trying to give it too big a food items too soon, and so it'll kill them and then not eat them. So I'm like, gosh, I got to just give it smaller pinkies and
Yeah.
get it growing okay, but not really thriving like the other one is. So
Mhm.
we'll see what happens. Just
Yeah.
one of those morphs, one of those messed
I
up
was just gonna
mutants, right?
say, sometimes you
Yeah.
gotta limp those morphs along.
Right? Yeah. So, I mean, it's nothing too crazy, but it's
Yeah.
kinda, something interesting, I guess.
Hey, so so I have a pair of children's pythons from you,
Yeah.
and the female, she looks really reduced pattern, and
Mhm.
like the male looks is really they're both like almost patternless
Yeah.
now. Is that
Yeah.
pretty common? I mean, is
Yeah,
that
that's children's
that
pythons, yeah.
okay?
Some of the lines, like, I know I got some from Ryan Young, or I got a female from Ryan Young that was really heavily patterned, and they maintain a more heavy pattern into adulthood, but the ones that I got from the Barkers, they kinda fade quite a bit, and so
Gotcha.
they're almost
Okay.
patternless when they're adults, yeah.
Okay.
So
Okay.
there is a line of patternless children's in Australia. I don't know if we have them here, or because it's really hard to tell because people call them patternless, but they just fade.
They're just faded.
Like a
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
typical
yeah. Yeah.
children's
And
python.
and
So
it's funny because that female's always been like, I mean, she has a bit of a pattern to her, but she's pretty patternless. And the male, he definitely has a pattern. But I was like, the other day, I'm like, man, I'm having a hard time telling these apart because they're both really patternless right
yeah,
now. So
yeah, right.
I don't know if that's a hormonal thing, or I mean,
I
I'm
don't
I'm
think so. I
sure it
think,
is at
yeah,
some.
they just kind of fade out. And so I bred that female pattern, highly patterned animal. I also bred some of the black eyes, and I got some really cool patterned animals, and they maintain a fairly good pattern. And like they change colors a bit, so like at
Hmm.
night, the children's pythons, like their pattern will stick out a little more, and they'll
Hmm.
get really light and cool looking. I don't know. I always kind of referred to those as ghosty
Hmm.
children's, but it's not like it's a simple
Yeah.
mutation or something. It's just
You want to be
they
careful
do that once
using
in a while.
words
I
like
know,
that.
right? Yeah. It was
somebody
really hard because,
somebody
part
will
of you like,
accuse you of
yeah,
something.
exactly. You're like, oh, I got to market these and name them
Yeah.
something cool. But then the other side is like, it's just a normal children's. And like the ones that I got from the Barkers, the babies are nice and pink, like really reddish colored when they're babies. And like, somebody hatched some out, and they got one from me, and then they had an adult that was from somewhere else. I'm not sure where they got it. And then half the babies were pink and half the ones were darker. And they're like, oh, I got a new morph. They're all light colored. And I'm like, no, that's just what nice ones look like.
It
Like
looked
that's
like,
just
yeah,
what
yeah,
they do.
yeah.
So I don't know. I guess it is what it is. But
Nice try, Satan. Nice try.
so I'm waiting. I did get a bum clutch from Stimson's Python. She's one of my nicer stims that I've got some really nice babies from her over the last few years, and I held back like almost all of her clutch like 2 seasons ago. And they were really nice. I had one that was kind of aberrantly patterned. It's really fine patterning. It looks really cool. So I kept probably, I think, 2.3 from that clutch. And then
What do you think? Why a bum clutch? Just bad year or
yeah, I mean, she was kind of acting gravid, but she was not really big. So I just knew and she laid a bunch of slugs. So
slugs?
I
Yeah.
don't know what happened with her, why she failed this year, but she's bred the last 2 years, so probably
Yeah,
just
she's
needed a
probably
year
just
off
needs
or
a
something.
break. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then a couple pygmies are gonna lay here soon. A
Sweet.
couple inlands will lay. I just got eggs from that jungle and the black-eyed line Stimsons, and then so probably ought to call it something else. I guess pied tail would work, or patternless tail or something. We'll see what these next couple clutches, because both the females are gravid from the black Stimson's male. He just keeps getting darker. He's not like totally black, but he's really dark.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, kind of a fun thing. It was David Hastings. I sold some Stimsons to David Hastings, and then he's like, yeah, this one keeps getting darker, and it's got black and white eyes. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And then he's like, yeah, I don't think I want to work with him anymore. Do you want him back? And so I bought the male back, and yeah, and he gets
Cool.
darker. Yeah. So,
Okay.
and it proved out to be something weird, or something's going on there, because the two that have the pied tails also have black eyes. So
Mm-hmm.
something's going on. But I don't want to call them black-eyed Stimsons, because we got the black-eyed children's,
Yeah.
and we'll see what happens when we black-eye to black-eye. But yeah.
You could call him Hastings. Never mind.
Yeah. So that's my week, I suppose. It was a good week. Oh,
Didn't you have NIH talks?
Yeah. Yeah. I think we talked a little bit about that on the last one, but yeah, the last podcast. But
well, I think you had to get ready to do them. I don't.
Oh, okay.
Did we?
I think it was just after I'd given them, because I gave talks that day. I had three like 20, 25-minute talks. So I basically spoke for an hour, on and off. I had 2 that were in a row, and then one that was separated by a couple other talks. So it was a hour plus of speaking to the NIH and other researchers that are part of the contract group. So yeah, long day. And then today, we're recording Friday night, so another kind of end to a long week. But today was nice. We had a employee appreciation lunch for our group, for our antiviral group at work, and man, we have a lot of people that work for us. And I
take them to Arby's.
we had pizza in the librry, so
there you go.
So but yeah, everybody was introducing themselves. I'm like, I don't know a lot of these people. So it's good to see everybody in one room, but there were good.
Does that mean you just stay in your office?
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm behind the keyboard.
Are you the get out of my lab guy?
No, I like to look for reasons to get in the lab and like interact.
No, but I mean other people. You're like, get out of my lab,
Well, if they're not supposed to be there, then yeah.
I suppose that's true. You can't be in those labs if you're not supposed to be.
But yeah, I'm in my office behind the keyboard way too much. I like to look for excuses to get out in the lab and do something, hands on. But
I got you.
What do you do?
Yeah.
All right. Well, we got another clip show for you guys.
Clip show.
Everybody loves a clip show, right?
I don't know if they do.
I need to find that clip from Simpsons, but yeah. So we're gonna go through the third 10 episodes and kind of.
This is our third installment of
Clip Show 3. We got it like Clip Show 2 is Electric Boogaloo. What's Clip Show 3? I don't know. Can't think of a good one. It's too late, I guess. Um, yep. Good times. Well, that's let's start them out here. So the first, and we had a lot of great guests in this, in the, the
We
21 to
did.
30 episodes. So first one started out with a bang. It was Keith McPeak. What a legend, man. That guy's awesome. I sure like Keith.
Stud
Um,
muffin.
yeah, and I've had the pleasure of doing a couple herp trips with him and kind of chatting with him, picking his brain. He's been doing this a long time, and he's been very successful. Like he's kind of maybe flown under the radar a bit. Hasn't been
Oh,
heralded like somebody like the Barkers, but man, he is just as accomplished
he's doing it
Tracy Barker in a
as
lot of
good as
ways.
some, yeah, as I mean,
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure he's gonna, god damn, I'm gonna knock on wood, but he's
yeah.
gonna
Don't
have
say it.
some
Don't say it. No.
he's gonna have some
he
special eggs this year.
he's everything's moving in the right direction,
Oh,
and it
it
looks
looks so
awesome.
good.
Yeah, I'm so excited
God
for him.
dang, fingers
I think
crossed
he's
for
got a
him,
lot
dude.
of people rooting for him and
Oh,
pulling for him.
100%.
Yeah, if anybody deserves
Like,
it, you know.
of all the fuck assery that comes out of those snakes, to
Yeah,
have Keith do that,
yeah,
please, yes. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like
And that was the topic of the conversation. We were talking about breeding projects and long-term success and things like that. Like he was talking about, if he's successful with Bolins, he wants to put them in the right hands
mhm.
to continue the project, not to make a bunch of money. Like he wants to do it the right way. So I mean, that's just cool. That's
Yeah.
that's really admirable, and I'm sure he'll follow through with it because
Oh,
he's,
yeah.
that's his mental, his mentality over the project is like he's not in it to make a buck. He's in it to make
Yeah.
sure that people can work with Bolins long into the future. So
Yeah.
good on you, Keith. And it was fun. It was really fun because we recorded it live, so it
Mhm.
was right at the first of the herp trip down in Arizona last year. So yeah, and that was a good trip and some
Yeah.
fun times there. So it
Yeah, I
was fun
have
to kick it off and chat with him and get distracted by all the cool birds that were flying overhead and stuff like that.
is Keith a big birder too?
Yeah,
Or
he
was that
likes birds. He's been
okay.
sending me some like some TikToks of birds like doing different things. He just sent a lyre
I'm gonna
bird.
call you two the bird nerds.
Yeah, he sent me I don't know if you've heard of the lyrebird in Australia. They're like a mimic, so they can do
Yeah.
like all
Yeah.
these different calls. I mean, it was mimicking a camera shutter and and like a truck and stuff like that. It's pretty cool.
That's pretty cool.
So yeah, but I think I really admire that attitude of like we got to be in this for the animals, not just for for the money. And
Yeah.
we've talked about that quite a bit. And yeah, you can make a living doing reptiles, and you can make a comfortable living in some circumstances, but it definitely takes a lot of work, and it takes a lot of dedication, and you got to put in the time. And most people don't come out of the gate running. They're not professional breeders right off the bat. Most people have a day job for a decade or more until they kind of get a collection and a reputation and things like that. So to take that high end, extremely expensive project and then just say, hey, I'm going to make sure this gets into good hands. I'm sure, I hope he'll sell an animal or two, to try to kind of be able to not that he'll need it, but to pay for, the
I wouldn't even be
food
mad at
and
him.
stuff
And
like that.
I know he said that he, he'll put those, and that was kind of part of the discussion was, and I think me burking all my Tracier was kind of
Yeah.
in that discussion. And
Yeah.
and
Yep.
uh and his thoughts were more moving those out to people, which,
Hmm.
man, what a it definitely got me like, man, am I, am
Yeah.
I making the right call with what I'm doing? Or
And
and
I hope he holds on to a few of them.
I
I
hope he
hope
does
he keeps
too.
some back because, you're going to have the best success with animals that are born on your, in your
Yeah.
facility, on your property, in your hometown, whatever. So, that would definitely go towards extending that project, and put some animals in the hands of capable people who already work with Bolins, so they can have that increased chance of working with a captive bred and born animal in the United States. But they're not going to do any better than where they're produced, in my
Yeah.
opinion. Like,
Yeah.
that's in a lot of cases,
Well,
that's kind of how it works out.
and the way I see it is whoever they go to, I mean, that person should be like, all right, what do I need to do?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they should go somewhere where the conditions are as close to as possible as what Keith's doing,
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where to me it's that important that
Hmm.
that if they go somewhere that the exact care follows,
Yeah.
it's
And frankly, I mean, I think especially with Bolins, where there are a few people that have a decent, like, Ari showed out his collection of Bolini on one of their videos showing off Reptilandia down in
Mhm.
Texas. And he's got a pretty sweet setup, and he's got quite a few Bowleni. So, he could probably house them really well. And I'm sure they're going to have a sweet setup in Reptilandia. Like, seeing what they've got planned for the Bowleni exhibit, that's going to be something that I'm going to definitely want to go visit and see that
Oh
place,
yeah,
because it
for
looks
sure.
incredible. I mean, oh my goodness, very incredible. So, hopefully, some of the animals make their way down there. He'd be one of those capable people that could,
Mhm.
do well with those. And but I really hope, I like the Chuck Poland method of, burking everything and holding on to it, making sure that the project is going to be viable. Now, on the other hand, if something were to happen, or
Yeah,
something, then all your eggs are kind of
are
in one
definitely in
basket
one
to some
basket. Yeah.
extent.
And
Yeah,
I
so
I, I mean, Keith's
you
point was
understand that.
yeah,
Yeah.
Keith's point was well taken.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I just, God, if I had a fire or something horrible
Hmm.
happen,
Yeah.
like that'd be it.
Yeah.
I would not be the
So
same man anymore.
yeah.
So, you know,
there's
I-
got, there's got to be a balance, I think, between the two. I don't
yeah,
think you should necessarily farm them all out, but you
no,
shouldn't necessarily hold on to all of them for into perpetuity. But
yeah,
you know until
yeah,
you figure it out, and you're working on getting a working group put together and stuff. But
yeah,
yeah, what a great episode, and what a great guy. I just really admire Keith and
yeah,
all he's doing. And his wife's really cool too. Teresa's really a great person as well. So I had the pleasure of meeting her. She came with Keith to Utah. So
nice.
just a wonderful woman. So yeah, really, really great time with those guys. Yeah. Well, anything else you want to say on that one? I know you probably have a lot of insight into that, and you've said your piece, but
Yeah, I
anything else
mean,
to add? You're
no, I mean, I really wish that guy luck. I'm
yeah.
pulling for him in a big way. So,
Yeah, yeah,
you know,
and I sure hope he
yeah,
gets that success.
listen, there, man, I don't want to say this because it sounds bad, but there are some really, really great people in the reptile community, and they're not always fair or fair and wide. Some of them are few and far between,
Hmm.
and Keith's definitely one of those few and far between amazing guys
Oh,
that you
definitely.
know
Yeah,
I want to see the best for those people because they dang deserve it. They make
yeah,
the
yeah.
community better. They make us all better.
For sure.
So
Yeah, I echo that completely. All right, our next episode was on marketing with Summer Grace Mitchell, and man,
hmm
she was on the ball.
yes, she was.
she knocked it out of the park,
Yes,
and made us, just. I fought with her, didn't I? And
yes.
she just made me
Thankfully, I
look
did
the
not
fool.
because
Yeah,
yes,
yeah,
I mean, I mean, that's her job, and
yeah.
obviously, she's a professional marketer,
Hmm.
and you can see she Justin Kabilka does an amazing job, and she makes him look amazing with her
Yeah,
marketing. So,
yeah,
that
That's a
top,
good team there.
top
Yeah.
to bottom, they are, they are probably the model for,
Hmm.
a high end, um, breeding, morph driven kind of, reptile business.
Yeah. And he's kind of set, he and his team have kind of set up that that vision and that complete package kind of ideal.
Oh, absolutely.
They go
Absolutely.
the extra mile and do a lot of extra things that most people don't do, and
Yep.
that's really cool. That's
Yep.
I learned some things from that, and I'm a terrible marketer and I'm a
Yeah.
terrible
Well,
salesman and all those kind of things. So I just hope that people appreciate the snakes as much as I do and want to
yeah.
work with the snakes, so
Well, and I mean,
I
I
can do
think,
a lot
and
better.
yeah, maybe you'll agree with me here, but I feel like I am a much better breeder than I am a marketer, and I try to pair snakes that make good babies, and I try to let the snakes sell themselves, which,
Hmm.
you know, I guess maybe works in one vein, but clearly, from that fight, we saw what that next level, or that third gear, fourth gear, fifth, sixth gear looked like,
Yeah.
to our first or second gear. So yeah, it was definitely impressive. And yeah, I definitely walked away being like, wow, I fucking suck. So
Well, and that's a good person to work for. I think
oh
Justin
yeah.
Kostelka is kind of one of the exemplary, people out there doing it the right way. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, what a great team, and good lesson on some of the useful things that can be done with marketing.
Hmm.
And like I think she brought up that point of, if you have good animals and you're striving to breed good animals, that's marketing. You're
Hmm. Yeah.
showing off amazing animals. Like, that's going to be some of the best marketing you can maybe do, is just show off good, healthy, strong, well feeding animals.
Well, and I guess I never really, like, I think about positive image representation of the reptile community, but I don't really think of it through marketing, which,
Mm,
when she kind of pointed that out, I was kind of like, yeah, why don't I think about it like that? Like, I mean, PR firms are marketing, right? Like,
mhm,
so, like, why wouldn't we take ourselves much more
mm,
seriously with marketing, and
mhm,
and do that to the nines, as they would say.
mhm,
uh and I mean, I to their credit, like, I mean, you can kind of see, like, why, it's definitely paid them dividends, and why it would behoove somebody to take marketing very seriously if they wanted to positively represent not only themselves but the reptile community.
mhm. Yeah, and that was a big part of that conversation that was very
Hmm.
kind of eye opening for me. That just kind of hit me by surprise. Like, we need good representatives to make this whole thing last. And
Yeah.
you don't want to
Yep.
just have the dirt bags with the gross animals that are hawking uh, half dead reptiles at a
Well,
show.
and I mean, n- we unfortunately we suffer from, not all of our attention being good attention, and
Mhm.
so,
Yeah.
it's
It's kind of a
you know
fine line anyway, and
yeah,
we
sure.
don't want we want to push ourselves over, on the good side rather than the bad, so they can see, yeah, there's professional businessmen in this, and business women in this um, industry, and that we deserve respect, and that kind of thing. So
Yep.
cool stuff. Cool stuff. That
Yes.
was a great episode, though.
It was a great episode.
Yeah. And then we talked about natural versus artificial diets, and kind of some of the pros and cons of, trying to mimic what an animal would eat in the wild, and what we have available in captivity. And I'm still kind of on the fence on that. Like, I don't know which way I lean more, because I like the idea of getting a naturalistic diet, but at the same time I kind of come back to, like, energy in, energy out. I don't know like, we used maybe hog noses and showed kind of through domestication they prefer rodents, coming out of the egg. They're looking for a rodent rather than a toad. But are they missing something by not eating toads? And can we feed them toads? I mean, maybe the best approximation we'd have would be like frog legs, or those reptilinks or whatever that are made
Mhm.
of frog or something like that. That's about as close as we could get. But are they missing something by not eating toads? And I mean, toads are kind of hard to come by these days, with the chytrid fungus and some of the other issues that they've faced. I know growing up there were toads everywhere around my
As
house.
far as the eye could
Yeah. No, I
see.
mean, yeah, you'd go out at night and see 5 or 6 toads just hopping around your yard. And then, like, sometime in the, you know, when was that? Like late 90s, mid to late 90s,
It's
they
about that.
started declining. And
Mhm.
then you very rarely see toads out, where I grew up. And so it's kind of a sad thing. And they are kind of those environmental canaries, and when the coal mines getting poisoned, those are the first things to disappear. So
Mhm.
I get really excited every time I see a toad, when I go visit my parents now. But it used to be very commonplace. So, you know, could we even have a mechanism to feed toads? Unless somebody's breeding a mess of toads, that would be really difficult to
Yeah.
feed hog noses a naturalistic diet. So does that mean we don't keep them? Or it's hard to say. And thinking like, I know at the venom extraction places they have coral snakes, and coral snakes are mainly snake eaters, and so they're difficult to feed in captivity. And they will mix up like a formulated diet kind of thing based on like, cat food, or and that mixed with other vitamins and nutrients and other stuff. And so they'll just assist feed, they'll just tube feed these coral snakes to keep them robust, healthy, alive, so they can milk them for their venom. So
Mhm.
it's purpose driven. I don't know how great that is, or if it results in runny stools or whatever. But um so I mean, is that acceptable? Would it be better to try to get them on rodents like we did with hog noses, or should we feed them other things like birds that more approximate a reptile? It's tricky
Yeah,
question.
I think that's a tough thing. I mean,
Mhm.
I and I guess like it's kind of a what you should do versus what you must do kind of an argument too. I
Yeah.
mean, I think you should try to feed something its natural diet, but must you? No. I mean,
Yeah.
I think at some level you're 100% right that it's energy in, energy out, but it may just be that the whatever you're trying to feed doesn't recognize that food item as a valid prey source, and it doesn't want to eat it, and you end up going through all this extra trouble, which could create other issues,
Mhm.
stress, whatever, all those things that could potentially happen when you're trying to force an animal to do something that's not natural for it.
Yeah.
um
Now,
and
obviously, oh, sorry, go ahead.
nope, go. No, I was
Obviously,
done.
there's some things that are specialists, like Phrynosoma, the horned lizards that are
Yeah.
ant specialists, and some are more ant specialized than others. Like the short horned horned lizards that live around here. They have a more diverse diet of beetles and
I saw a
crickets and
cool
stuff.
video of some horned lizards sitting around like it was like a trough thing that had a hole and like a pole that
Oh yeah,
stuck up
yeah,
out of it,
yep,
and the ants would come up and they just sit
yeah,
there like licking off that was so
yeah.
cool.
That's
I don't know,
a
it made me think of that.
No, yeah, those are some of the that's another species that's more that will take a lot of different prey items other than ants, or the Mexican giant horned lizards, the
Mhm.
ASIO, Phrynosoma ASIO, and they're the largest species as well. They're pretty cool, and they're more commonly bred than probably any other species. But I do think they need at least some part of their diet needs to be ants, and who knows, maybe it's other factors that we're not hitting in their captive care. But you can order ants. You can get ants, and I kept a group of mountain shorthorn lizards, Phrynosoma hernandezi, happy and healthy as far as I could tell, until I messed up brumation, and we won't talk about that. But up to that point, they were I was feeling pretty successful with those. But yeah, so and, of course, you need to be careful. I sent off some of the babies to a friend, and he had collected some ants, and the ants had poison, and so that ended up resulting in
yep, that's not good.
A poor outcome. But so it's sometimes hard to find those diets, but it was kind of nice because there was a commercial source of harvester ants that I could order for certain, $20 for a cup of ants, and they would last, probably the better part of a month. And you could just put them in the fridge and slow them down, keep them kind of in a torpor, and then they would last quite a while. So, there's ways.
Say that word again.
Which one?
Torpor.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Slow, cool state. They're in the fridge, so they're slowed down, and they're not, burning themselves out and needing to eat food and all that kind of stuff. They just kind of almost like a hibernation, or
torpor.
All right. You heard?
No, that's a new word for me.
There we go.
All right.
So there are some avenues to get those naturalistic prey potentially. But again, I go back to that Snakes of the World book by O'Shea, and just seeing the diversity.
I mean, you kind of have to figure that reptiles are everywhere, and they all fill different kind of niche nippers. And so they're all going to have different prey sources, and so you're gonna run into, and like, as O'Shea poignantly makes a point, that's horrible. Some of this stuff is just impractical to keep because of what it eats. It's because of its diet, but maybe to your point, does it matter? I mean, I think maybe at some level it does, but
well, and they do have that predisposition to eat certain things, and so it's kind of sometimes difficult to overcome that. If you can find a very young animal or something, you might be able to overcome that. The other thing is, like, there are a lot of really cool snakes that can be, switched over to maybe more available prey, like the shovel nose snakes. Why is nobody breeding those in numbers, or
I don't know. They're cool as hell too.
They're way cool. I mean, there's challenges, but I'm hoping to maybe do that someday. But they're really cool snakes and insectivorous. So there's quite a few of those little insectivorous snakes that would be really interesting to try. But yeah, lots of things to think about when you're thinking about natural prey and and switching over to artificial diets or lab bred
non-natural.
Yeah, you're not finding an albino mice out in the wild very often, that's for sure.
No.
All right, well, then we had a really fun debate with Scott Eiper, our Australian buddy.
Scotty.
On the carpet python taxonomy.
Yeah, and you guys. That
was a fun debate.
That was good. That was good.
Yeah,
that's good.
That triggered a call from he who shall not be named. And
you stirred the Aussie hornet nest.
Yeah, and I think the new book is gonna do a little of that. So
sure.
Scott see that blue line soon, but so
Scott could not go without putting his 2 cents in there. It was good.
It
was good.
And I just listened to the podcast. My brain is not functioning well tonight, but the herpetological highlights. Those guys they do a great job on their podcast. But they were talking about the new Antaresia paper and the naming of the new spotted python in New Guinea and the ones up in the Northern Cape and stuff. And I mean,
you mean the one that's shite?
I mean, it's really hard to swallow, and they kind of fully endorsed it, and I'm like, oh, come on, guys, at least have some, uh, on the other side of it. Just
Yeah.
because it's published doesn't mean it's great, and they did mention like the article starts out citing a 10-meter long snake, and it's like there's no 10-meter long snake that have
10
been
meter long?
reliably measured. Yeah, that's a big snake.
What the
I
fuck?
I think the largest recorded one is like 17 meters. Now, 3 meters is what, 10 feet. I mean, that's that's a
Yeah.
that's a bit of length there to be off, but that's a long snake in and of itself. To yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That to me, that article is just full of holes, but
Mhm.
and they're using a bit of an outdated species concept. So I don't agree with it. I will use Stimsoni, and some of the things that I brought up with the carpet python taxonomy, I think it can go either way, and I'm
Mhm.
okay if they're all kind of genetically close enough or they don't hit the cutoff, but what that cutoff is, who knows? It's just some
Yeah.
arbitrary magical
Well, and
number, and
I mean, I think, and
yeah,
again, thinking back, the areas where you guys wrestled were not area they were areas of debate and minor distinction, not
yeah,
of gross, cavernous divide.
hmm,
I mean, clearly they're, you know these things are, not the same thing.
yeah,
That's shown pretty clearly they're not. And there is now, where those divisions happened, how far they've diverged, how
yeah,
the radiation has affected them, what were the factors of radiation, like,
hmm,
all of that is I mean, that's tough to talk about because
yeah,
it's, we're a snapshot in time on a
yeah.
scale.
Yeah,
So, I
and we're
mean,
naming them for today, you know what I
yeah,
mean? Like, we're
yeah.
naming them for today, and so that's difficult because 'cause you've gotta take into account
And
potentially millions of years of evolution and,
that's what taxonomy does, is it
Yeah,
takes
yeah,
a today snapshot.
yeah,
And that's why taxonomy is not a static thing. And
yep,
nobody says this is how it is. They say
mhm.
this is how it is right now.
Yeah. Well, but they are trying to base it off of, the last several
Sure,
million years and kind
sure.
of predicting what's going to happen in the future and things like that. So, I don't know. I've got some issues with taxonomy, and I don't know if those will ever be resolved. I was reading an article about
I don't know if
orioles,
yeah,
the
I
the
don't know if
birds, right?
the issues of taxonomy will ever be
No, no.
resolved
Yeah,
ever anywhere.
it's
I
gonna be
mean,
very difficult to change
yeah.
that behemoth of a field, but I was
Well,
reading an
it
article
yeah.
about, Orioles, right? And there's 2 species, one that occurs in
The
the east and one that
Baltimore.
occurs Baltimore Oriole and either the what was it? The Scots or black-headed, something like that. Anyway, they meet in the middle and hybridize in the plains, and you can clearly identify, for the most part, a hybrid versus the two species. Does that mean they're all one species that occur across the whole United States, or do those phenotypic and genotypic differences, or do they warrant specific status? Right now they're classified. I think in the past they were classified as one species, and then just different variants of the same species, and now they're classified as two separate species with a hybridization zone in the middle, similar to coastals and diamonds. So
And to me, that
mm,
means, that the fact that they have a hybridization zone means absolutely nothing. And if you can still, I guess it depends on the market and measure that you're using to judge the two species. But as long as there is a difference, that warrants different species, then that integrate zone hasn't caused, a
humana 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 humana.
a homogenization of the species, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
so, I mean, again, it's like, just because something is happening doesn't necessarily mean you throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Mhm.
And I think that's one of those things where the coastal the McDowell Spalota argument you know happens,
Mhm.
and it's kind of like no, I still think they're very much two different things.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, it's kind of not a it shouldn't be an argument. It really shouldn't be an
Yeah.
argument in my mind. And
Well, and I mean, again, regardless of what science labels them as, we kind of know what is distinct and what is unusual or different, and to some extent, as far as we can know. And I think the more you look at photographs of wild specimens or you travel in Australia yourself, you can kind of see, okay, there is quite a bit of variability, especially with
Mhm.
carpet pythons. And that's
Sure.
one of the things that makes them cool. But you can still see fairly solid divisions, and it blurs when the lines
But
come
I think
across.
that's
And
the same way when you're
yeah,
talking about, when you're talking about chondropythons too. Like,
hmm,
yes, there's some variation there, and maybe you shouldn't be so hard and fast, but there's some very reliable visual cues to
yeah,
say this is a northern ranging animal, this is
hmm.
a southern ranging animal.
And same
And
with Simpson's pythons.
yeah,
That's why I don't think they should go away. But
exactly, and
yeah,
that's
yeah,
what I mean is like yes, I get it, and sometimes when you can look at a genetic analysis and there's very little difference here, but but that wasn't the measure they were using when they classified the species.
yeah,
You know what I mean? And
yeah,
so do you just now say like, well, because we have this newer technology, we throw everything, it
yeah,
basically means that we should invalidate all of taxonomy until we can redo it at a genetic level, which
yeah.
is
That's
kind of,
it's
you
very
can't go
difficult.
back like that. It
No,
doesn't. So
you got
you're
to fit
left
that
with,
in as a tool. You
yeah,
can't
and
just
so you're
rely
left with
on
an
just
imperfect
genetic.
thing, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
and it's just kind of like you do the best you can. You understand that it's never perfect, and you just take the American who writes the book about your snakes and move on with your life.
Well, regardless, a discussion with Scott is always fun,
No, and Scott, and
he's a
he's
very knowledgeable
he
fellow,
is a
and
super knowledgeable guy. He's
yeah,
fun to talk to, and
well read, and
he's pretty reasonable about stuff. I mean, I,
mhm.
you wouldn't, he who shall not be named would not have been reasonable in that conversation, right? So
Yeah,
that to be able to have
that
a
was
reasonable and lively talk with Scott was
yeah,
awesome. So
yeah, that
we
was a
we
fun
do love you,
fun
Scott.
time. And then we had our scientific name discussion the week after that with
El
Smitty. Yeah.
Schmitterino.
And I don't think any Smitty tears were shed in that episode. That was
No,
a lot of fun.
no,
And
no
I will
mountains
say
were
too that
climbed, no tears
Schmitty
were
is
shed.
he's a bright guy, and he has a
Yes.
very good grasp on a lot of different topics. So it was fun to have him back on and chat with him a bit on that. And I think it's an important issue to talk. The you got to learn the scientific names. Here's a great example of yesterday. I was in the local pet shop, and they had what they were calling mossy tree frogs. And I'm like, that doesn't look like the mossy tree frog I know, like the really cool, bumpy green things.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think of the scientific name and I can't think of it, but that's, so I'm like, well, what's
Way to
what's
go.
what's the scientific name of the one that you've got in the shop? Oh, I don't know. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was kind of like, if you don't know, there's a lot of things that could be called mossy tree frog or something. But this, I was thinking Theloderma, the Vietnamese mossy green frogs, Theloderma corticale or whatever, but that are just really cool looking. So these
Yeah.
weren't quite so striking, a little different, but I don't know what they are because I wasn't given their scientific name, and the
Well,
people at the pet
obviously,
shop didn't know it. So
yeah, I was gonna say it
yeah,
sounded like they weren't expecting anybody to come in and know what they were
sure.
in either. So
Yeah, and for the most part, people don't really care about science, but
yeah.
I mean, scientific names help you convey what you're talking about, because there's
Sure.
multiple common names for things. And I think Schmitty did a good job about making that distinction, and pointing out the importance of that. And but within the bird world, common names work very well, because there
Mhm.
is a more set in stone, common name for just about every species. So it's really hard to not know what you're talking about, unless you say a gull or a duck, or you got to know at least
Yeah.
the proper common name for it. But I think they do a really good job of having a defined set in stone common name. And I think there are some efforts in the reptile world to do that. And I frequently, especially when talking about Australian reptiles, refer to the A-Rod site. They do a good job of kind of having a set common name for all the reptiles. Yeah, I'm sure it gets difficult with the skinks, and they probably bow out of not having a common name for a lot of the skinks, and then
Mhm.
just use the scientific name. But when all else fails, using the scientific name will let you know specifically what there is. And for some things, like he was talking about tarantulas and spiders, there is no common
Yeah,
name. They just
they
go with
go
the scientific name.
exclusively.
And a lot of times we'll even shorten the scientific name as a little nickname, like Aki. Comes from
Yeah.
Varanus acanthurus, and so we'll use that as kind of uh, as the scientific name, but in a nicknamey manner, as a
Yeah.
common name, but based off the scientific name. So I guess as long as the two people who are conversing know what the other one's talking about, then it's okay.
Yeah.
You can use common or scientific names, but it's good to know the scientific names, learn them, study them, memorize them. My daughter, it was really cute. My 13-year-old,
Mispronounce them.
she,
That's what I
yeah,
do.
that's always fun too.
That's what I do.
But it's fun to hear what how other people pronounce them too, because
Yeah.
and I read them and I think I'm pronouncing them, and then oh no, Scott will come in and say no, it's Bretta Lee, and I'm like, I don't care, I'm going to say Bretta
I don't care.
Lee. But then you might sound like a redneck American
Yeah.
saying Bretta
Like,
Lie.
you
But
fucking
anyway, my
yank.
my daughter made a bunch of flashcards with all the species that I keep in the reptile room, and to learn their scientific names. So I thought that was
That's
pretty
what's
fun.
up, dude.
She printed out a picture and wrote the scientific name on the back, and then tried to memorize them. So it's pretty cute.
That's
So
pretty good, dude.
what a good daughter.
Yep.
Then we had a great episode on husbandry practices with Mr. Frank Payne.
Yes.
What a cool guy. That was
Yeah.
really great to have him on too. So
Yeah.
Frank is he's another one of those shining examples of how to do it right. Select
Yep.
some species that really a lot of people don't really care about or know about, and develop those and make them popularize them,
Hmm.
make them more popular.
Yeah, and I mean, I would say that he, you know, he kind of won his argument because that's what he's done. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I certainly, I think people need to start somewhere, and I gave him the credit for that for sure, as being a
Hmm.
place to start from. But I think the pitfalls of the care sheet, or having somebody tell you how it is you don't find out that that's actually what's worked best for them. And I saw I saw Frank say something about that a 12, 12, 18 was too small for a pair of Williams eye, and that's what I breed my Williams eye in, and
Yeah.
mine do great in there. And
Yeah.
I understand. I'm not saying Frank's wrong. I
Yeah.
understand why he says that,
Uh-huh.
because it is kind of a small space for some very, very quick geckos, uh, and you got to clean it a little more often. There's definitely some
Drawbacks. Yeah.
nuance, yeah, nuance
Yeah.
to it, but you can absolutely do it in a 12, 12, 18. So I guess my thing would be, somebody would hear that and they would say, "Oh, no, you can't do that." So because Frank said that you can't do that. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Yeah.
And and I think that's kind of, it's not wrong. It's just not necessarily the complete. And me being the guy I am, I think stuff like people are always like, oh, that's too small of an enclosure. Like, well, maybe the animals like it better because they feel safer. Like, I always go to that. Maybe that's total bunk. I don't, like, but it has been successful for me. Now,
Mhm.
can you keep animals in too small of an enclosure? Absolutely, you can.
Sure.
I'm
Yeah.
not saying that's not a thing, but I definitely kind of feel like the pitfalls of just listening to I mean, obviously Frank's going to give you good advice
Yeah.
because there there's not very many people who do it better than him.
Mhm.
Um, and so you're not really going to go wrong there, but you know it, it 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 may not work out that the Frank Payne way of doing it works for you in your situation. And if you're so rigid in the idea that you can't step out of the four walls of that box, uh, then maybe you're missing an opportunity. And I think that
Mhm.
really was my only point. Other than that, I would never argue against anything somebody like Frank Payne says.
Yeah. Well, and we just had, Philip Leitz on, and
Yep.
he was talking about how, he's seen people be successful when they follow kinda his recipe or
Yeah.
his, care sheet, if you will.
Yep.
And so, there are some species that respond very well to that and have a specific set of parameters that you need to hit on, and if you don't,
Well,
then
and
they're
and
they
I
might
don't
not
think
be
that
as good.
I don't think that's wrong at all. I think
Yeah, yeah.
when you have a Phil Leitz or a Frank Payne who's gone in and been highly successful with a species, they're
Mhm.
articulate guys, they're smart guys, they know what the fuck they're talking about. They've obviously had success, so yeah, why wouldn't you? Listen to those guys as a starting point. And even Phil was saying that you know he's had situations where he's been less successful than he wanted to be with certain things. So
Mhm.
even
Yeah.
when you do well, depending upon the species, you may not have the same success as you did with another species that's closely related or should be kept under the same kind of regime. So use guys like that as a solid base, but
Mhm.
always understand that you got to be the student of the serpent. You got to,
Mhm. Yeah.
can
Gotta pay
continue to,
attention to make
yeah.
sure that it's working
I
for
mean,
you.
be articulate in the
Yeah.
observations that you make and the decisions, and always keep in mind, like, um, that foundation. But sometimes you gotta sometimes straying away from that is a basis for success in
Yeah,
something
yeah.
else,
Sometimes you can
so
learn things by, yeah, going away from the plan,
yep, yep.
but also you can just as easily or more easily fail by,
Hmm.
going a different direction. So,
Yep.
it's hard to say. And, I there's more than one way to skin a cat, there's more than one way to do things. And so we, need
Yeah,
to
your
make sure
hairless
that
cat is proof of
yeah,
that.
exactly. We we need to make sure that we're not, you know, overemphasizing, like, sticking to the plan even when, it's clearly failing.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I think, like, maybe the chondro world went through a bit of that, having to have females be over 1,000 grams before they even attempted breeding. That's a monster,
Well, yeah,
but
but
or
nobody knew
keeping them
any
on
but
life support by spraying them, all the
yeah,
time.
but
Yeah,
nobody knew, and you know what I mean, like
but nobody
that
strayed from the plan, you know what I mean?
well,
Yeah,
that's yeah,
yeah.
that's
They just
fair.
said, "Oh,
That's
this
fair.
worked for him, so I'm
Be,
gonna do
be
it
well
exactly like."
because that's somebody
And
had
I'm
limped
saying
animals,
nobody, but they did.
right.
People
Well,
did
but,
stray.
but but they limped these animals
Yeah.
along and they got them to breed, and oh, by the way, they were missing them all the time, and they were huge, and so that incorrectly made the observation, oh, this
Mhm.
is how
Fed
they
rats
breed.
and yeah,
Yeah,
you
I
got
mean,
kept
it's
really
like,
hot. Yeah.
and they're
Yeah, sometimes that leads to a false sense of, "Okay, we've cracked the code," and
yeah.
so people stop asking questions. And I think it's very healthy to have that, intellectually curious mind, never stop asking questions. And
I do have to say though,
Mhm.
you know, having
Within
had
limits, right? Yeah.
having had a number of green tree pythons in my collection over the years,
Mhm.
I'm really surprised it didn't occur to any of these pioneers that they just are like hang out, do nothing pythons that may not necessarily need to eat all the time. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like
Yeah.
they like they're pretty easy to, you can ignore them and they do fantastic.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like
For
I
sure.
don't I you know, I don't
Yeah.
know. I mean,
I
but then
agree.
again, I wasn't there in the early days. I don't know how these snakes were coming in from
Mhm.
importers.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know,
In
the
terrible condition. Yeah.
totally different game.
Need
So,
ICU.
yeah,
Yeah.
like
Condition.
I can't believe they didn't see it, now, but hey, I wasn't there back then. So,
Yeah.
I'm not
Oh,
talking
yeah, yeah.
smack.
We're not trying
I
to
know,
pass judgment, but,
yeah, for
yeah.
sure. For sure.
Yeah. Well, and that leads us to the next thing, breeding is a benchmark, just because your animals breed, does that mean you're succeeding or, you know, that's a that's a tricky one.
You
I
took the
did.
yes on
That
this
was a
one.
tricky one
I
to
mean,
answer.
I don't think that you can say that, that breeding is not a benchmark for success. It
Mhm.
definitely is.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's
Sure,
the
sure.
benchmark.
And
Um,
do we even have the tools to measure the benchmark? I mean, it would probably be very expensive to look at blood chemistry for your, for your animals and
yeah.
try to figure out.
Well, and I mean, I think longevity is probably the benchmark, but
You
again,
can put something on ice and keep it alive for, decades and decades. They proved that with the monitor lizards, like
that's
some of those
fair.
some of those longevity records are just because they were kept, at very low. I I visited like a distant relative, like a great aunt twice removed or something, something like that, where it was like my dad's cousin's mom or something. Anyway, or dad's cousin's mom, something
I'm
not
just gonna roll
close.
with it. Keep going.
Anyway, yeah. So, um, they found out that I was interested in reptiles. Like, oh, we have a turtle downstairs, and I'm like, oh, where at? Oh, down in the basement. I go down in the
You're like,
basement.
oh no.
It's like, oh my goodness, it's like, a typical cold
Yep.
cement floor basement, and there's this box turtle down there. Its nails were like probably 6 inches long. It couldn't even hardly walk on its feet because of long nails, and just obviously neglected. And but they're like, yeah, we've had it for like 20 years. I mean, it had been around
Yeah.
for a long time, and
Yeah,
the
that's
poor
fair,
thing
I
was
guess.
getting along and living, but was it thriving? Was it happy? Was
Yeah.
it, was doing the things that it should? And maybe it was just fine. Maybe it just had a little bit of long toenails, but I didn't interact with it that much. But I'm like, oh man, you probably want to help that thing out. Give it,
Well, if we,
give it some substrate to burrow into or dig
if we
into.
go back to your derpy jag argument, then it should be fine, right? Should be fine. Just falls off a perch every once in a while, should be fine.
Well, and I mean, it lived a long time. Yeah, if so, I would think breeding is probably more of a benchmark than longevity, because
Yeah.
with reptiles, if you just keep them cold, they
But
might
at the
live a
same
while.
time, I mean,
Yeah,
couldn't you overbreed a reptile into death?
sure. Oh yeah, yeah,
So, I
definitely.
mean,
Yeah, if you don't support reproduction, you can.
sure.
But I think a lot of like some species are designed to do that. Chameleons. I mean, chameleons pump out hundreds of eggs over a couple year period and then they die. I don't know that saying, "Oh, I have a
But
10-year-old chameleon" is a
is that
benchmark
how
of
they I
success.
mean, is that their wild behavior as well? I mean,
Yeah.
do
Oh,
they have
yeah. They're
fairly
like the
short lives and
insects of the of the reptile world, and they don't
alright.
live more than a couple. And there's a lot of the smaller dragon lizards, the gamids in Australia. The Tympanocryptus. Um, couple of those species, like they only live a couple years, and they just crank out the offspring. And so if you have a project like that, you just say, okay, well, I'm gonna and a lot of times those chameleon females, if they're not bred when they're young, like 6, 7 months
Mhm.
old, they die. They go
Yeah.
egg bound. So you want to give them the opportunity to breed. You want them
Well,
to fulfill their, nature, or their
and I
call of the
so
wild.
So definitely the details matter. I mean,
Yeah.
you have to take the into account the reproductive strategy of the animal you're talking about, and
Hmm.
you know, and as long as you're talking apples to apples,
Hmm.
I definitely think that reproduction can be a benchmark for success. I mean, I mean, but I also think longevity can be a benchmark for success. But that has to be coupled with proper care, right?
Hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
I think, you know,
If you can get away with both, that's great. I mean,
yeah, I mean,
if you can
I
breed a female
even better.
chameleon for 5 years and she's still going strong, more power to you. That's
Sure.
impressive. But I wouldn't say that if you bred your female and she bred and produced hundreds of eggs and then she died 2 years, I don't think you would consider that a failure necessarily. You know what I mean? Like, and I could be
No,
talking out my butt. Maybe chameleons live 5 years, and maybe we should say 10 years or something. That kind of thing. But
sure.
the nuances are there. But I think if you can say, okay, I produced 300 offspring from this female, and she lived for 3 years, that's pretty successful. She passed on her
Mhm.
genes. She did her genetically programmed, thing,
Well,
and got her genes out there.
and I always kind of wonder, so you think about, like, and I like plants in this, where you see plants that plants either tend to put their energy one way or another, whether it's defensive, alleliopathy, where
Hmm.
plants produce secondary metabolites which actually resist bugs,
Hmm.
oils which give you rashes or blisters or things like that, or they flower and reproduce very quickly, right? But they don't tend to do both. They put
Yeah.
their egg in one basket or the other.
Oh yeah. Well,
And
both of those ways are like biologically costly. Maybe you could
Yeah,
say. So
exactly,
you can't
exactly.
you can't do both.
You
It's
can't do
something
both,
that,
right?
yeah,
Exactly,
perhaps.
exactly. And I think, if and it's probably hard to do, but if there was a way to kind of take an average
Hmm.
of what a snake or a lizard or a chameleon or whatever would lay respectively in the life of that animal, and you could take a mean of how many eggs it laid in its life, and whether they lived a long time and spread that out over a long period, or it lived a short time and had a lot of eggs in that period. Because
Yeah.
the golden spoon, talk about shine in the golden spoon theory, or the golden spoon hypothesis. That's kind of what that's talking about. And so both of those water pythons would be considered successful if it lived a long time and had lots of clutches over that long period, versus or had few clutches over a longer period, versus lived a shorter lifespan but had tons of eggs in that short lifespan.
Hmm.
Both are, and I guess, to the point, it's both benchmarks, breeding being a benchmark for success. But
Yeah.
how do you parse that out?
Yeah. Well, I guess that's kind of the summary, right? Is that it's not the only benchmark, but it
Yeah,
is a reasonable benchmark in a lot of cases.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And
Yeah, and I mean,
that's one of
whole
the
whole
strongest drives that animals have, is to pass their genes on, to find a
Yep.
mate. And,
Hmm.
it's what gets male reptiles out on the move in, the spring or whatever. So,
They're all
yeah.
like Matthew McConaughey. All right, all right, all right. I don't know.
All
That was
right. Well,
probably
if
weird.
you breed a lot of stuff, sometimes that leads to our next topic, inbreeding. um, we got a sweet flow through here. So, inbreeding, is it a problem? And yeah, that was another tricky one. What are the indications of inbreeding, and when do you say, oh, we've inbred it too much, and stop? And I think a lot of consequences of morphs, if you want to call it that, are could be
Hey,
could be
didn't
could mask as inbreeding.
I feel like we just argued this and you said there are no consequences of morphs?
No, I said there were some, but
Eh,
were they enough to
eh.
cull all the animals? No, they're
Uh,
not.
all right. Well, let's go. I guess that's back to the topic. I was speaking more
You were just
recently, but whatever.
poking the bear, weren't
Yes.
you? You
Yes.
You want
Yes,
the claws, don't you?
I know. Oh, calm
But
down, Mike Tyson.
yeah. So, obviously there have been cases of inbreeding, and inbreeding depression, and
Yeah.
can have some effects, and we see this. So there was an example of, um, a few of us had been breeding Cape York spotted pythons, and we bred a bunch, and I produced a bunch of them one year. And so I'm like, I've got too many. I'm going to send. So Nick arranged to send some over to Paul in Europe. And so after that year of producing all those, all of a sudden my Cape York stopped producing, and I couldn't get them to lay good eggs after that point. And so I'm like, oh, come on. And it might have been a change of focus, and maybe I wasn't feeding them up enough, and maybe I wasn't paying enough attention or something, or I had them in the wrong setup, or they were too hot or something. Anyway, they didn't breed. And so we were kind of talking, Nick and I were kind of talking about that, and we were speculating, oh, maybe it's some inbreeding depression. They're just not thriving because they've been inbred for a few generations or whatever. Well, the offspring that got sent over to Europe did fantastic and bred
Yeah.
like wildfire, and they produced a bunch of them over there. And so now it seems like they have more over there than we do over here. So, the offspring of the ones that we thought maybe had inbreeding depression did not really show that. So,
Yeah.
I
Well,
think it
and what do
was
you
other
what
factors. And
and I mean, I think we touched on this, but I mean, don't animals that suffer from inbreeding depression pretty much take care of themselves in the long
yeah,
run?
right.
I
Yeah.
mean,
So,
you know,
you can get some maybe more common mutations, or they just failure to thrive, and that kind of weeds them out anyway. So,
mhm,
yeah. And I mean, there's lots of examples of higher order animals, if you want to call them that, mammals that, I mean, laboratory mice are highly inbred
mhm.
over many, many generations. And
That's
so,
why they're there. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and that concentrates their genes and kind of makes them more
Homog
homogeneous.
homogeneous. Yeah, that's good. Both are, I think both are
I
correct
think
there.
so.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. You say tomato, but so we
Yes,
we
I do.
we can use that as a tool, and that's why we
Yeah.
inbreed rodents, is to
Yeah.
use that as a tool to study different aspects of their genetic inbredness, or the issues that arise from that.
Well,
But
and I think I think I mean, obviously inbreeding, you know, probably not the best way to uh, encourage genetic diversity. But I definitely think that, and maybe you'll agree with me here, that we definitely really put a negative connotation on inbreeding,
yeah.
probably worse than we should.
Mhm.
I think a lot of this stuff, I think a lot of stuff is inbred, and we just do it all the time. We don't even realize we're doing it.
Yeah.
You can look at stuff that we bring in. I mean, one could probably argue that U.S. jungles are
Oh, yeah.
heavily inbred, but
Sure.
nobody will bat an eye at that because we called them, oh, this is a Larry Black line, and this is a
Mhm.
Lazic line, and this is which all came from the same fucking place. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
Classic.
um,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly,
His
exactly.
line. Well,
Yeah,
I'm sure there've been others that have kinda made their
sure,
way in,
sure,
and we
sure.
saw
Eh,
kind of an influx. But yeah, for the most part, they're fairly highly inbred. And I mean, unless there's a
but
negative,
but I but I think but okay.
genetic combination that results in a negative outcome, if that's not present, then you can inbreed all you want,
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Inbreeding is bad when you have something deleterious
Yeah,
going on. Then you're
exactly.
perpetuating a deleterious gene, and because you're not outcrossing it and you don't have anything else to do, all of a sudden it's in everything, which you could see moving forward. Especially because you're but by not by inbreeding,
Yeah,
you're
and you're not moving
magnifying
it
traits.
forward.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And
It
so
weeds itself out.
it
Yeah,
will definitely weed itself out.
yeah.
So I,
Right.
like, but at the same time, like one of the things I really like about integrades is that hybrid vigor that we talk about is they do seem to do great. And yes, taxonomically they may be a little you know,
Questionable,
not
sketchy,
yeah, not
whatever.
fun
Yeah.
to not comfortable to talk about. We
Yeah.
can't, you know, they don't pass the mutton test, but they can look very cool. And if you can get over
Sure.
the fact that they're a carpet python and you know, look past subspecies,
Mhm.
um, you know, nothing wrong with it.
Yeah. And I think, island populations are a good example of species that do just fine with
Hmm.
inbreeding to some level of inbreeding, because some of those places had to have had fairly small founder stock. I mean,
Sure.
I think the Burmese pythons in the Everglades are a great example of that. They did a study on those and found them to be fairly closely related genetically, that they all originated from the same mother or something. Like
Hmm.
a guy in the 70s released a female that was gravid and she had eggs, and some of those perpetuate, kept on keeping on, and and now we have a fairly substantial problem down there. But you know
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
they
and you
even
know,
made a TV show about that. I was looking on Hulu or some one of those streaming services, and it had the guy who plays Daryl on The Office. What's Craig somebody? And
yeah,
anyway, he's it's like he's hunting Burmese pythons in I don't even know if it was Florida somewhere, but he like the preview has him stapling a snake to his hand with like a nail gun or something. I just nailed a snake to my hand. Like, how do you think I'm doing? Uh, I'm like, pass. Yeah,
yeah.
I
I was
don't
gonna
think I want to
say
watch some
you don't want to
snake slaughter
you don't want to
TV
spend your
show.
time on that
Yeah.
quality programming.
Yeah. I mean, it looked like it could have had some potential to be funny, but yeah,
And
I
you know,
didn't
I
want
mean,
to.
I'm just a fucking Yahoo Yank that doesn't know his genetics. But maybe we do an episode and bring Ben Morel on and let a real expert talk about genetics
Yeah,
and
we definitely. I've invited him. He's actually agreed to come on. He just was busy right now and needed to
yeah,
wait a few weeks until finals were over and things like
right,
that. And
right.
he's coming on. We just need to get a topic worthy of him, coming on. So it'll be
Ding.
good. Yeah, let's talk
Yeah, I
genetics with
feel like
Ben.
yeah, I don't even know if that's even worthwhile topic for somebody like Ben. That
No, it'll be fun. Yeah, he'll do good. We should
yeah.
debate. I love the debate that he brought to my attention of once you bring a snake out of
Oh
the
yeah,
wild, it ceases to belong to that evolutionary trajectory. So technically, it's not a member of the species you removed it from in the wild, or something kind
yeah.
of academic like that. Kind of fun to think about, but um, hard to accept in practice, I guess.
Yeah, well,
you know,
I mean,
and oh yeah, people
people
would
love
lose
their
their mind.
names. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's no. I mean, you can't
It
do
was
that to
pretty
people. They
fun to
got
hear him do that.
like the fact that you would have to like that a lineage chart would really mean nothing. Well, I guess it wouldn't mean nothing. I guess it would mean everything. It would
Yeah.
mean
It would just be,
everything.
yeah, it's the line you have is, yeah,
Yeah.
it's the new, because you're selecting their mates and
It
things
would
like
mean everything and it would mean nothing at the same
that.
time.
Nothing at
Oh
all.
my
Oh, it's a
god.
conundrum.
That just blew my mind. What the heck? All right, we got more?
Yep, two more. Pathogen testing. Travis
Ooh,
Wyman,
we did not
the
transition to
the
Travis
sup
very
the
well there.
supposed Dr. Travis.
Oh yeah, what the
Yeah.
hell?
That guy, he's the real deal, man.
For
He
sure.
definitely deserved that PhD and earned it.
Yes.
Just like, yeah. And so that was
Nobody
fun to
tears our buddy
discuss with
down
him.
like that.
And it was kind of that that fun little debate of whether or not you should test your animals for pathogens. And I was kind of on the negative side of the don't test side of that argument, and to some extent, I kind of stand by that a little bit. But I
Mhm.
think it helps to know what's going on in your colony. You can assume it's one thing or another, and that's the problem with pathogens, is a lot of them share the same
Mhm.
symptomology. And so diagnosing something based on what symptoms they have is really difficult to do.
Yeah.
I don't know anybody who can necessarily tell a certain virus from another virus, or even like a bacterial respiratory infection from a viral respiratory infection. That's very difficult. It's difficult in people. You go
Oh
to the
yeah,
doctor and they go,
whatever. That was COVID. That was
you go to
COVID.
the doctor and say, what do I have? And they give you antibiotics and say, get out of
Yeah,
here. And you're
they
like,
don't know.
well,
Yeah, they
yeah.
very very rarely. I
And
mean,
they have
unless you get a
tests. They could
yeah, well,
test for a few things, but not
a-
everything.
and
Yeah.
I think now that we're getting more resistant and resistant
Yeah.
bacterias, that
You got
the
to take
doctors
that
are now a
seriously.
little bit more motivated to test to see if they're given the right kind of drugs to treat it. But yeah, I totally agree that when I was a kid, man, they just threw antibiotics at you and
Yeah,
kicked
and
you
they
out the
still
door.
do that in some
Yeah.
some instances, but a lot of times if you have a viral infection, you'll get a secondary bacterial infection, so maybe it's not the worst thing. And there aren't many antivirals approved, and that's
Yeah. Yeah.
my struggle is like I identify some really good ones in cell culture or in animal models and show that they work really well, but no company's going to take them to market because it's just for a tropical disease that occurs in South and America and Africa or something, and doesn't
Which
impact the US very much, and there's a vaccine available.
which is
Yeah,
stupid because if
we have a
it
global society.
yeah, it
Yeah. No matter how much the nationalists want to say America first and we're the only ones that matter. No,
well, I mean,
global travel means
yeah,
that we can, well, and I mean, right now we've got birds flying through North America that have avian influenza.
right,
And,
right.
there's a risk of that establishing itself in the US and having some avian influenza pandemic. How fun would that be? So, yeah,
We're
that's
not ready for that.
nope. We need to work together. But testing your reptiles for pathogens, I think, gives you at least the peace of mind to kind of have an answer if you can identify it. If the
Yeah,
vet can identify it, or the testing service can figure out what you've got. But um, what to do after you identify it, for a lot of these things, all we can do is isolate them,
yeah,
especially for viral infections. But bacterial infections, there are some options, and there's always, they're developing new options for, some of the newer classes of antibiotics are coming out, or better versions of previous classes. So, you know, work with your vet and take care of the sick animals as best you can.
yeah,
Sometimes
yeah.
that's easier said than done because there's not a good vet close by, but there's a lot of vets that would do kind of a tele uh, session,
Telephone,
go
tell a
over
friend.
Zoom or whatever, and kind of look at the animal over Zoom to some extent. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's tough. There's certainly some challenges around testing.
Hmm.
There's certainly benefits around it, and I think the nice thing is we actually have some diagnostic tests that are out there that we can call upon, and they're available to people. So no
Hmm.
matter whether you feel like everyone should test or nobody should test or whatever, the point is there is the capability to test if you feel like you need to. So no matter what side you're on, it doesn't prevent anybody from testing. And certainly, if you were worried about it, you have something that you could keep your collection, if nothing else, keep you informed um, about a potential concern that you had coming, going on in your collection.
Hmm. Yeah. All right. Well, let's finish this up. Our last topic was anthropomorphism. That was an interesting topic. I was a little worried about how that one would go, but I think we had a decent discussion on that. And obviously, it's kind of a little obnoxious when people take anthropomorphism to the level of my beardy loves me, or my leopard gecko loves it when I scratch his belly. Look at him, turn over and close his eyes or something. Yeah, that can be a little hard to take sometimes, but I mean, I guess as long as you're caring for your
Mac and
animal.
Wookie boops the snoot, dude. Get over it.
Oh god, that gets me. I love that term. You did a good job there, Chuck.
Dude.
Mac and Wookie. I was trying to remember it the other day. I'm like, what was that he said? Like,
Wait. You just
oh,
wait.
Owen Foot? No,
No, it's
Mac and Wookie.
Mac and
Yeah,
Wookie Owensis? No.
Oensis. Yeah, something like that.
Is that
Mac
what
and
it was?
Wookie Oensis. Yeah.
Yeah.
That is the scientific name of the Mac and Wookie. Yeah, we gotta do some shirts or something.
Oh,
The
dude.
the Mac
Yeah.
and Wookie believes in you. All
God,
right.
I
But
love Owen.
yeah, I mean, I don't know what else I have to say about anthropomorphism. I get a little impatient or frustrated with that. It's kind of
I
simple
mean,
simple
here
to me, but
I'll just wrap anthropomorphism up for you here.
do it.
We're humans. We're gonna anthropomorphize shit. That's what we do because we're humans. Like, so, being of course you're gonna look at something from a human centric point of view because you're a human, and that's the only point of view you have, right? You can try to put yourself in another animal's, shoes. You can guess what's going on with them. You can take cues and make your best determinations about things, but really you're always going to do your best to figure out what that animal's doing from your point of view. So,
Sure. Yeah.
I don't I are there potential pitfalls of anthropomorphizing things? Sure, I guess so. But there's also, the idea that life is built upon the same building blocks,
Hmm.
and it's an unbroken chain of evolution. So maybe some forms of anthropomorphism have some, validity to them, and oh, by the way, if you're just, you're just not hearing that, then do your best to think like your snake and move on with your life.
Yeah. I think the damaging aspect of anthropomorphism is when you are saying your snake doesn't like that. If you don't keep your snake in a 40-foot by 20-foot enclosure, your corn snake, you're he's unhappy, he's miserable, and you are torturing that poor thing. Like when you
Sure.
when you're trying to use an anthropomorphism and try to pass it off as what the snake is thinking, I
Yeah.
think you can get into trouble that way. So
Yeah. And
we
I
need to be
mean,
careful to interpret how our animals are are thinking, because who knows if they even are thinking. It's really hard to to make an argument against or for consciousness of animals and that kind of thing. But there's some evidences for and against it. But I think try your best, like you said, to give your animal meet its needs. Give it food, warmth,
I
whatever.
mean, and
Interact with it too. There's
yeah,
nothing wrong with that.
I
Yeah.
just, I mean, obviously, I when I say that you're a human, so you're going to come from it from a human point of view. I don't mean, so literally what you would think is what the
Yeah.
animal would do. You absolutely have to be able to think what is best for this reptile, knowing that you're a
According to
human, right?
my estimation. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
That's how it should
obviously,
be
you
seen.
can take anthropomorphism, as Justin just said, to the point of like, yes, absolutely, you're being a fucking idiot right now. But, hopefully you're doing your best through your human lens to think about and learn about what has been scientifically observed to be, the way your the natural history of your reptile, works.
Hmm. Yeah. For sure. So,
That's it.
That does it. We are
Woo!
done with clip show number 3, the return of the clip show. Oh, the second return of the clip show. I still didn't come up with a good one for that one.
Yeah.
It's really hard to beat Electric Boogaloo, but
Yeah, that was so good. That was.
Yeah, I don't know.
We
That
could
one
call
stuck
it
with me from the 80s. So that clip show 3, the revenge of the clip show.
Gleaming the Clip Show,
Gleaming the clip show.
Remember that
Oh
movie?
yeah. Oh
That was
yeah.
cool, dude. If you were
Yeah.
into skateboarding back then, that was like, go Christian Slater. Yeah, man. Woo!
But we hopefully, you got something out of this. It's fun to, recount some of the discussions or some of the new things that have kind of dawned on us since we had those. And obviously there's opportunity for other aspects of any of the topics that we've already covered, to delve into deeper or to go off on a tangent. So, if anything strikes you when you're listening to this, let us know. We can have you on and debate it with you, or you can just tell us, hey, talk about this, and we'll give our best to fight that topic well. So we do appreciate the input, and hopefully we can get some more fun guests on, and we'll get new ones as well as some old ones that have been on. It's fun to have them revisit and get back on. So thanks to everybody who has come on the show. I mean, these last the ones that we talked about today, more than half of those had guests, so that was a lot of fun, and we want to keep that going. So if you got any ideas, let us know. We'll get you on and have a good fight. So
We have fun with our guests, that's for
yeah,
sure. I could say
yeah.
I've thoroughly enjoyed every guest that we've had on. We always have a good time. So
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. So anyway, thanks for listening. Check out MoreliaPythonsRadio.com, and the Podfather will grant you 7 wishes. So uh, I guess I can't speak for the Podfather, but
yeah, you really threw some shit on his back right there.
well, you know him. He'll grant wishes. He's
Oh
a
yeah,
good dude.
he's a good
He's a
dude.
good dude.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, folks. We appreciate our listener, and we hope to catch you next week for another episode of Reptile Fight Club.
His name was Robert Paulson.
Fight Club.